I never quite realized how beautiful this world is.
Throughout Nier Automata, Taro Yoko is able to encapsulate the everyday struggle of finding meaning in existence. Even though aesthetically different, his exploration into themes such as human existentialism is also personified in the works of Denis Villeneuve's Blade Runner 2049 and Mamoru Oshii's Ghost in the Shell. Questioning the very definition of sentience, or making the player reevaluate how we play games, I will analyse Nier Automata's use of cinematic visual storytelling and how it takes advantage of ludonarrative dissonance. The diegetic aesthetic of Nier Automata puts the player in the year 1194 AD, with the 14th Machine War. After Earth is invaded by an army of machines created by an unknown alien race, the remnants of humanity have fled to the moon, where they launch a continuous proxy war against the machines, with human-like androids and the desolate remains of Earth. The game continuously changes narrative as the player switches from the perspective of the game's android protagonists 2B, 9S, and A2. This also changes the gameplay elements, unitizing a mix of hack and slash, bullet hell shoot 'em ups, text-based, and other genres to convey its ludonarrative. But what do we mean by ludonarrative? Game studies has explored how games tell their stories. Ludonarrative refers to the mix of game's narrative and gameplay elements. The term ludonarrative dissonance, as explained by Seraphine Friedrich, refers to a game's conflicting gameplay with the story it tries to convey. Games like Naughty Dog's Uncharted are prime examples of this. Games often make use of transmedia storytelling as a technique when adapting narrative, borrowing from other media and usually in the form of cutscenes to convey narrative through non-interactive means. Nier Automata instead reaches a level of ludonarrative epiphany, subverting its own over-the-top anime-like style. This is the first brought to mind during 2B's opening speech, which references the philosophy of eternal recurrence, simulating the cycle of the android and that of the player.
We are perpetually trapped in a never-ending spiral of life and death. Is this a curse? Or some kind of punishment? I often think about the god who blessed us with this cryptic puzzle, and wonder if we'll ever have the chance to kill him.
Use of cinematography and camera angles aren't just limited to films. Nier Automata makes wide use of framing the player in the vision of the creators. This is especially explicit when we look into the game's use of sexuality and gender. 2B's character model is clearly sexualized, yet the game isn't overly invasive about it, often restricting the player-controlled camera angles, and there is little implication in cutscenes. One exception, however, comes from the text-based segment involving Adam and 9S, where the revolving conversation forces the player to consider the digital attractiveness of 2B, the result of which demonstrates the growing convolutions of creating sexuality in the form of digital technology. This is not just restricted to 2B, however, as the boss fight with Simon extenuates the limited camera view as to not see Simon when fighting her, emulating her vocal desire to be perfect. The idea of gender roles and types is also reversed with Pascal, whom despite identifying as a he, has a rather feminine-like voice.
I understand that you see us as the enemy, but, well, anyway.
There are also implied relationships throughout the course of the game between androids and even machines. This is an important aspect of identity in the game, emphasizing gender and sex. The former is simply how androids view themselves, and the latter is visually based off in the image of their own creators. Perspective from the game's characters is crucial to how we witness an event or depict a certain scene. Mise-en-scene underlines placement in any given scene of audiovisual storytelling, to which is equally important in video games, as well as films and play. The game focuses on making the player self-aware of the complexity of its issues. This aspect is imbued into the very idea of emotion, a basic level of consciousness that resonates both for the android characters as well as the player. The characters would have no imperative to complete their missions, hacking, killing, etc., with such efficiency without basic motivation to do so. Programming alone may explain why we have to kill, yet doesn't provide us with any incentive. The same emotions are imperative for players to progress through the game, even when we are replaying or repeating recurrent segments. They still have something driving us to complete it. Scanner models like 9S are characterized by their research and information gathering abilities. They tend to hold a great deal of interest and curiosity. The game also shows the emotional restrictions of androids through the symbolism of their hardware and their clothing. The use of Yorha's blindfolds acts as an in-game HUD, but it also helps obscure the soldiers' emotions, hence why attention is often drawn to 2B's words and actions when conveying her emotion. This is also extended towards the operator models, who wear veils, the symbolism of which relates to the proverb of the three wise monkeys: see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. The Yorha flag also depicts the closed eyes of an android, representing their blindness to corruption. It's only when these blinds are removed do the characters know the truth. Though soothing and melancholic, the mono-style visuals that give the everlasting feel and the calming soundtrack while in the android's safe haven, the bunker, are only designed to give a false sense of security. The fact being, everything about the bunker's design is used to cover up the truth of Yorha's actual purpose and the fate of humanity. It's nothing more than a fortress of lies. The machines in the game were thrived to find their own identity, but due to the lack of guidance left behind from their alien masters, they instead turned towards humanity to find existentialism. Throughout the game's open world segments, we witness different machine factions split off from each other, with only the desire to emulate humanity in common. While programmed to mimic humans, yet lacking any emotional understanding of humanity, they merely grasp certain aspects. We see this through the various locations. The theme parks use of colourful fireworks and joyful melody emulates fun and love. In contrast, you have the strict, distilled monarchy of the Forest Kingdom, the peaceful rural harmony of Pascal's village, the zealous inter-religious conflict of the mechanical weapons of war. Amongst these pockets of civilization in an artificial world are some of the game's main bosses, who take on the names and beliefs of human philosophers, such as Beauvoir, who invokes feminine existentialism, or Hegel, which represents synthetic unity and idealism in physical form, all of whom subvert their human counterpart. Misunderstanding in games is more than just cutscenes. Nier Automata shows the possibilities of fully incorporating cinematic aesthetics and techniques with dynamic gameplay, creating true ludonarrative resonance.